Hi there, story lover. If you have turned on this video, you can be sure that these will be the most meaningful and appreciative moments in your day. Because Blank Recaps publishes a brand new video every single day. And today, I will tell you about real courage, preservance, and majesty of nature. Jack is a paleoclimatologist who's on an expedition in Antarctica with two other colleagues, Frank and Jason. While drilling for ice and core samples, the ice shelf suddenly breaks off from the rest of the continent, and Jack almost falls into the ravine to his death. After that, Jack hurries to the United Nations Conference and Global Warming, New Delhi, to present his findings. Jack found that 10,000 years ago, a global warming changed the Earth's climate into Ice Age. Jack is confident that it will happen maybe in around 100 to 1,000 years from now. The only way to avoid this is by stopping the atmosphere from polluting. Most of the diplomats have disagreed by Jack's theory. At the conference, Jack meets Professor Rapson of the Climate Research Centre in Scotland, who's keeping track of the world's ocean currents. Terry spoke to Jack about how the melting of the polar ice caps has poured fresh water into the ocean and diluted the salt level balance, which has caused the temperature of the ocean currents to drop by 13 degrees. Meanwhile, two boys in the North Atlantic simultaneously show a massive drop in the ocean temperature. And all over Earth, the climate system changes for the worst. Tokyo is hit by a softball-sized hails. In the same time, Jackson's son, Sam, is in New York for a new academic competition with his friends Brian and Laura. Late in the night, Professor Rapson concludes that melting of the polar ice has begun disrupting the North Atlantic current. He immediately calls Jack to predict what will happen. Also, in Miami, suddenly large grains of hail have begun to fall from the sky and a storm has risen. Los Angeles is absolutely destroyed by a group of huge tornadoes that hit all conveniently at the same time. The US president authorizes to suspend air traffic over the United States due to severe turbulence. Jack meets the president and gives him the totally bad news that his estimate of years now has gone down to days before the planet enters a brand new ice age. Jack advises the president to evacuate everybody immediately in the southern states to Mexico because it is already too late to evacuate most people in the northern states. After that, Jack leaves to New York to find his son. Meanwhile, 3 helicopters fly to evacuate the British royal family from Balmoral Castle in Scotland. They enter the eye of very massive hurricanes that causes a temperature drop of minus 150 Fahrenheit that freezes their fuel lines, causing them to crash and quickly freeze to death. It begins to also snow in New Delhi. During the competition of Sam and his friends, the weather becomes massively violent and intense winds are starting to flood rains. Unfortunately, the storm worsens, forcing subways and Grand Central stations to close down when they flood. As the storm worsens in Manhattan, a storm surges impacts the entire island, causing major flooding. Sam, Laura, and the rest of their friends hurry to seek a refuge in New York Public Library. As they make their way to the front doors, Laura cuts her leg on a piece of jagged metal attached to a cab. She ignores the injury and helps out a woman and her children get out of a flooding taxi. Sam calls his dad and gets advice to not go outside and freeze to death. The best thing that can be done is to make campfires and keep yourself warm as long as possible. Jack promises to come and take Sam out from there. Inside of the library, Sam advises everyone of his father's instructions to stay inside to evacuate people, even though it sounds crazy and requires a lot of money. Survivors in the northern United States are forced to flee south. Jack sets off for Manhattan to find his son, accompanied by Frank and Jason. Their truck crashes, so the group continues on snowshoes. During this dangerous journey, Frank falls through a glass roof of a snowbound shopping mall. As Jason and Jack try to pull Frank up, The glass under them continues to crack. Frank sacrifices himself by cutting the rope, and he falls to his death. Meanwhile, Laura's afflicted with blood poisoning when the cut she received turns septic, so Sam, Brian, and a new acquaintance, JD, goes to search for penicillin in a Russian cargo ship that drifted through the streets of New York. Suddenly, they're attacked by escaped wolves from the New York City Zoo, but they manage to escape them. And just then, the eye of the North American super tornado begins to pass over the city with its minus 150 degrees Fahrenheit instant freeze temperature, and the entire New York City skyline begins to freeze solid, buildings and air-like. Sam and his friends return to the library with medicine, food, supplies, and just making it back safely. During the deep freeze, Jack and Jason take shelter in an abandoned restaurant. Jason has succumbed to the extreme cold now and the wind, and he has also collapsed. In desperation, Jack dropped him into the restaurant's kitchen through an entire vent and held up the entire storm as the storm's eye passed. Meanwhile, Sam and his friends try to keep him warm in the library by burning different books and waiting for help. A couple hours later, Jack and Jason are ready to resume their journey and finally arrive in New York City. There's snow absolutely everywhere, but the deadly frost is thankfully gone. They find the library buried in snow, but luckily also find Sam's group alive as they're rescued by the US Army soldiers flying helicopters. Thank you for watching this video. Now, you see how mighty and unpredictable nature really is. Although the individual actions of each one of us are small, together we can influence the climate and temperature of the planet. And remember to always appreciate those who stay with you even when it's dangerous, contagious, showing their trust, courage, and love. See you in the next video. Bye-bye.